Okay, the latest Tottenham Hotspur transfer news, big news coming over the last 24 hours. We'll have a look at where we're at with Giovani and Celso, and there's new news on that potential deal. And also the big news about Bruno Fernandes, bit of a surprise that one, and to be honest, I'm amazed he's still not been snapped up by a club. So we'll take a look at the facts of where we are on both. We'll have a look at, the big question is it either or is it going to be both? Can they both play in the same team? How do they play? What do their stats look like in comparison? So we'll have a good old look at that. We'll also have a talk about Mauricio Pochettino, because he obviously came out in the press conference earlier on in the week, sort of threw his toys out the pram a bit, and understandably so. I think he feels a bit like all the Tottenham fans out there, a little bit frustrated that no more signings have been made and no further progress has been made over the last few days. Now, he's come out in a new interview and he's kissed and made up with Levy. So we'll have a look at exactly what was said. And, could the new news on Celso and Bruno Fernandes be the spark that Pochettino lit in Levy with his earlier press conference? We'll have a look at that. So let's look at the facts first. We'll have a look at Giovani Lo Celso. Now, there's a report out in La Gazzetta dello Sport and going into sort of quite a lot of detail regarding Lo Celso. Now, they expect that deal to be done for £55 million. They expect it to be a 5-year deal, and they're talking of 3.6 million a year contract for Lo Celso. So now that's been reported by them. It's been reported by numerous other sources in Spain, and that deal, as we speak, I mean it's first thing Friday morning, has not been confirmed. It's not been signed and sealed, but it looks like it's still on the table. It's still looking like it's edging there. And hopefully we'll get news of that over the next few days. But that one's looking promising. Now, the big one that sort of came out of nowhere was Bruno Fernandes. And again, we'll have a look at exactly what's happened on that and where we've got to his name coming to the fore. We'll have a look at, we'll have a look at his stats. We'll compare how he plays to Lo Celso. But I'm amazed at the fact that, clubs like Man City, Liverpool have not entered the race for him. He really is a classy player, and he's not perfect, and we'll talk about that when we look at his stats, but he really is a classy player, and he's the sort of player that can unlock a defence. And, for Man City, they've got David Silva, potentially leaving in 12 months' time. Liverpool looking like they need somebody to add some extra firepower if the front three, injuries or one of them is off the boil. And also those games where, the top teams in the Premier League are playing lower down teams who park the bus. Bruno Fernandes is one of those really creative, crafty. He sees things, it's a term I use a lot, he sees things that other players don't always see. I'm just amazed they haven't come in. But anyway, they haven't as yet. Man United were expected to get him, and there were talks that a deal was virtually imminent. What happened yesterday was Tottenham had representatives fly out to Lisbon for a face-to-face meeting. Now, the reports suggest it's a record in Portugal, and numerous other media and all the British media have reported this as well. So we're pretty certain it's fairly genuine news. But they've reported that an earlier bid was made by Spurs, a low bid that was rejected. But Levy sent out a representative yesterday to do a face-to-face meeting to try and tie up the deal. Now, it's reported that Tottenham knew exactly what Sporting Lisbon were looking for to tie up the deal yesterday, and that was €70 million. Now, unfortunately, Tottenham have come away, the representatives flown back to London. No deal done as yet. The bid that Tottenham put forward fell short of where Sporting want it to be. And there's talks that they have sort of provisionally arranged further meetings over the coming days. Now, it's very, very nice to see that they're looking at an alternative to Lo Celso, or could it be both? And that's the big question. So we'll have a look at whether they can play together. But first, let's just put their stats over the last 3 years of Giovani, Lo Celso, and Bruno Fernandes together, and then we'll just sort of talk through what sort of style of player they are, where they'd fit in the team, what are their sort of positives and negatives. And you'll see that I think personally they're two players that both can fit in the same team. So the stats show, we'll have a look. There we go. Lo Celso last year, 46 appearances, 16 goals, 6 assists. 17-18 season, 48 appearances, 6 goals, 7 assists. And the 16-17 season, he was in the French league. I think he was PSG there. Only 14 appearances, 1 goal, 3 assists. And he was struggling really to break into the team there in the French league. He spent a lot of time on the bench, and it didn't quite work out for him. Hence the move to Real Betis in the 17-18 season. Bruno Fernandes, a year older by the way. Lo Celso is 23. Bruno Fernandes is 24. And, those stats the last 2 years are just to dream for. 18-19, 53 appearances, 32 goals, 18 assists. 17-18 season, 56 appearances, 16 goals, 20 assists. And the 16-17 season was when he was at, before Sporting, when he was playing in the Serie A with Sampdoria. 16-17 season. Again, a lot lower, but both these guys in the 16-17 season, were 20, 21, 22, so very young lads, but 35 appearances, 5 goals and 3 assists. Now, a couple of things just to point out. They do play in slightly different positions, but the main thing I want to point out when looking at these stats, Lo Celso plays in the Spanish La Liga, and Bruno Fernandes obviously plays in the Portuguese Primeira Liga. Now, it's pretty much universally accepted that the Spanish La Liga is a much stronger league than the Portuguese. So I think we've got to take that into account. Also, just another thing, just while we're looking at stats, their international stats for both of them are pretty underwhelming. Lo Celso's had 19 international appearances, 2 goals, 4 assists. And Bruno Fernandes, although he's looked excellent when I've seen him play internationally, his stats show 13 appearances, 1 goal, and 1 assist. So both are pretty underwhelming on an international stage, which is probably the only worrying sign I can find out about both of them. Now, in terms of how do they both play, they are slightly different players. So Lo Celso, he's an attacking midfielder that is more defensive inclined than Bruno Fernandes. So you can play in the middle. He drives forward, but he's also got a sort of defensive side to him. So he's not a holding midfielder, and he's not a second striker. He's more that attacking midfielder. The thing I like about Lo Celso is he can play out on the left. So he's a sort of player that you can move into a forward position on the left, in the centre, or you can have him sitting a little bit deeper. So he's a very versatile player, and like I say, he does provide those goals and assists. So he plays a little bit deeper than Bruno Fernandes. Now, Bruno Fernandes is very much an attacking midfielder, second striker, likes to position himself sort of centrally behind the front centre forward. He obviously drifts left and right, but his work is very much done in the last third of the pitch. So typically you'll see Lo Celso in that middle third of the pitch, and yes, he does score goals, we know that, but Bruno Fernandes, you'll pretty much see most of his work done in that last third of the pitch. So they are slightly different positions, and hence why it's not perhaps a fair thing to look directly at a comparison on stats. Now, could they both fit in the same team? Yes. If Tottenham signed both players, and I would, if I was Daniel Levy, I would buy both these players. But you've then got people like Lo Celso, you've got Bruno Fernandes, you've got Eriksen, you've got Lamela, you've got Ale, you've got Lucas Moura, and Son as well, potentially, all fighting for places, which is a nice problem to have, but I think potentially they may need to offload one or two. Now, Eriksen, nobody's coming in for that yet, but I still feel that with the way that is with his contract, anybody that is looking to make an offer for him and take him is unlikely to come in until the death of the transfer window. So potentially, if he signs both players, Eriksen could be out of the door next week anyway. Now, I think Eriksen is a super player. I think I've said it in previous videos. But if you signed Celso and Fernandes, you've got two guys there that are 3 and 4 years younger. And should Eriksen go, and you can't blame him for wanting a new challenge after 6-7 years at Tottenham, then you've got two young lads there that are potentially going to be with Tottenham for a good few years, and potentially Levy will like the fact that maybe in 3-4 years' time there's still a transfer fee should they want to move on to pastures new. Now, Bruno Fernandes, superb player. I keep talking about Spurs needing to find another 20-30 goals to compete with Man City and Liverpool for the Premier League. And he is the sort of player that could certainly add those to the team. Celso, I think, is the sort of player that in the Premier League, because the Premier League is a step up for both players. So I think Celso is the sort of player that can give you 10 or 15 goals. And I think Bruno Fernandes is the sort of player that can give you 15 to 25 goals and the assists as well. So hopefully we're looking at both. We'll let you know, obviously, of any further news on those. But both are looking pretty promising, particularly Celso. That one looks like it's edging nearer and nearer. Now, in terms of how this has all come about, you could argue that it was Pochettino's press conference last week where he sort of threw his toys out the pram a bit. And I think he spoke, to be fair, I took it that he was speaking more as a fan than a manager. He was showing his frustration, I think, that they've obviously got a plan, and to say that Levy's not including Pochettino in transfer discussions, I think he's probably wide of the mark. Pochettino and Levy will have discussed players, they will have had a plan of players, they'll have had a pecking order, and Levy's left to do the negotiation, and Pochettino gets on with it. And Pochettino probably felt a little bit left out. Now, he's sort of made up in an interview he's given. I'll put up on screen the interview he did. He said, this is how he was quoted. He said, "We need to be relaxed and calm. I am so happy. I hope we have a very good season. The most important thing now is to show respect for the club. We are trying to bring the best team possible. We are going to work hard to make our fans happy and be competitive. It's a challenge at a club like Tottenham, but we are going to work together. After 5 years, we have built a very good relationship with Daniel Levy." And he later added in the interview, "Of course, sometimes Levy, me, the fans and players are frustrated, but the best thing is to be honest, genuine and spontaneous. Maybe I describe the situation, but we are so focused to work together to be professional and try to create and build a team to have the possibility to fight for big things." So you can see he's kissed and made up a bit with Levy, and it certainly helps when you see your club's representatives flying out to Portugal to try and do a deal for Bruno Fernandes. So all looks fairly okay for the moment, but my worry is if Levy doesn't deliver on some of these transfers, this could be revisited with Pochettino, and he's not a manager you want to lose. He is one of the top managers in the world right now. So Levy, for the sake of the team, in terms of building a team that can compete with the best, for the sake of his manager, and for the sake of pushing on from last year and not losing that momentum from last year, there's two deals there that get two and everybody will be happy. Get one and I think that most people would be content. Now that just leaves a couple of other areas. Obviously the right back situation, a bit of a concern with Foyth getting injured. There's talk of maybe going out into the market for a right back, but I suspect that's one that they'll run with at the moment. and sort of review the situation. I think Foyth was going to be unavailable for the first 2 games anyway, but I feel that's something they'll revisit in January, unless the situation changes on Alderweireld and Rose. At the moment, it looks like both are staying, and that sort of takes care of business in terms of central defence and the left side, the left back for the moment. But they're not problems that are going away. They're going to, come again in 12 months' time. So that's something that Pochettino and Levy need to work on, but I suspect that won't be worked on in this transfer window. I think that's something that maybe will be January or next summer. And should Celso and Bruno Fernandes arrive, then I think there's a squad there in terms of age, quality, competitiveness, that really you've got a basic structure there for the next 5 years of players that can take Spurs forward. And like I say, it'll just be a case then of tinkering with areas like the fullbacks and the central defence as and when they're needed. So that's a full roundup of where we are. I hope you enjoyed the videos. If you do, please like and subscribe. I appreciate any support. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks once again for watching.